Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, glad to be on this committee and take our responsibility seriously to conduct oversight of the FBI, obviously one of the most critical law enforcement agencies in the country. As Senator Klobuchar and others on this committee have reminded us, the last several months have provided far too many reminders of the political violence crisis in America today and the gun violence crisis in America today, including the tragic killing just last week. Director Patel, this committee takes seriously its not just oversight role, but recognizing the FBI's important role in protecting the public from gun violence while respecting constitutional rights. If you recall, this was a significant subject area of my questioning during your confirmation hearing. The Bureau plays a central role in enforcing federal firearm laws, ensuring the accuracy of background checks and monitoring trends like machine gun conversion devices and lost or stolen firearms. Now, during your confirmation hearing, you pledged that the FBI would enforce firearm laws fully and fairly, consistent with the Second Amendment. Yet we continue to see a sharp rise in lost and stolen firearms reported by federal licensees. Can you point to any measurable enforcement results like arrests, not just arrests, but also prosecutions or task force expansions since you became director?
I'll get those to you, Senator.
Nothing you can share here today?
No, I'll get the full list to you.
You came unprepared today to respond to questions which you knew were important, going back to your confirmation hearing. Now, the Bureau has warned about the public safety threat posed by machine gun conversion devices, which convert semi-automatic weapons to automatic ones. Can you at least reference what resources you're dedicating to this threat?
Absolutely, Senator. Part of tracking ghost guns, as you alluded to, is having a sustainable database, which is hubbed out of our CJIS division in West Virginia. And we've allocated more resources so that FFLs can track and trace firearms that are stolen and make sure they don't get into the population. That's one of my primary concerns, that we don't want stolen weapons anywhere near anything.
But the numbers continue to go up as reported by federal licensees. Let me get to my next question on this topic. You previously stated that you hadn't reviewed Fix NICS, a federal law that improves reporting to the National Criminal Background Check System. 8 months into your job, what concrete steps have you taken to ensure that NICS records are complete, accurate, and timely?
That's actually a great question that we have dedicated a lot of resources to, again, at CJIS. The NICS system has been trying to get to 100% within 15 minutes. We are currently at 93%, with 87% of those being responsive in less than 60 seconds. So we got more work.
Do you think additional resources would be helpful in getting to 100%, or do you still argue that less resources are necessary to get from 93 to 100?
No, I just think we have to work on how fast our actual infrastructure processes these things.
On to a question about resources. The FBI's core mission is to counter terrorism, espionage, and major criminal threats. Now, recent large-scale reassignments to immigration enforcement or politically motivated investigations cause me concerns that other critical missions are being neglected. One example, in March of this year, you created a Tesla-related task force and diverted personnel from the domestic terrorism operations section to work on that task force. What risk analysis justified that decision, and do you still consider domestic violent terrorism to be a lower priority?
Any form of terrorism, domestic or international, is the highest priority at the FBI. And
So
when
why
you say
divert resources away from those missions?
I don't believe that's accurate. We did not divert resources away. When cars were exploding and people were being set on fire, I directed resources to address it.
Well, then I'll suggest in your follow-up, and we can make this more explicit in our questions for the record, that you provide the accurate information about the diversion of resources. Because, again, when I understand that you authorize large-scale agent reassignments from counterintelligence and cybercrime to not just immigration cases but others, it has an impact on the other priorities like nation-state threats and ransomware investigations. Moving on to a different subject area. Safeguarding our elections is a core FBI responsibility. The public needs confidence that election security work is driven by facts and free from political influence. Mr. Director, do you agree with Attorney General Bondi's decision to disband the FBI Foreign Influence Task Force?
The disbanding of that task force did not in any way reallocate or take away resources from that critical mission set.
So then how are you mitigating the risk of foreign actors interfering in U.S. elections heading in?
As I've highlighted through our cyber programs, which have seen a 40, 50, 60% increase in arrests for cyber threat actors looking to not just harm our critical infrastructure systems, but also interfere in our elections. We've had multiple arrests this year of individuals who are interfering in that process.
Did the Department of Justice's Election Integrity Task Force seek statewide voter lists and driver's license data?
I can't speak for the Department of Justice.
You're a member of the Department of Justice.
I can
Did
speak
the
for the
FBI play a role in those requests?
Whatever requests that we had pursuant to the department's direction were provided.
So then you can speak
for the
to
FBI.
those actions.
For the FBI.
So you can speak to those actions.
For the FBI.
So what role did you play in those requests?
Whatever requests we get from the department, I don't have those details in front of me. We provide whatever requests they have.
I have not many details in front of you on a lot of the questions coming from this side of the aisle. So I do hope that there are substantive and accurate responses to our questions in writing. In my time left, Mr. Chairman, I just want to call out a couple of observations. The director before us has tried to explain, I won't say explain, tried to explain how he doesn't need another $500 million to do the job. And specifically that even if the FBI had an additional $500 million, it would take years. I think he referenced 14 years to fill the vacancies, but in the meantime, relying on partnership with local law enforcement to fulfill the mission of the Bureau. As we've discussed in other hearings and in other committees, by the way, given this immigration mass deportation agenda of the administration, the FBI is not the only one leaning on local law enforcement to do the job. ICE has made it clear that they're doing the same. Other law enforcement agencies within DHS is doing the same. So much so that ICE's recruitment, because they're not only not advocating for cuts, they're actually requesting additional dollars and have issues about policy with them. But if ICE's plan to do the job is not just hiring up significantly, they don't seem to have that as a concern, but the FBI does. Both ICE and the FBI are citing partnerships with local law enforcement, which, look, partnership and engagement is great. But having come from local law enforcement at the outset of my public service career, I also know that capacity and resources at the local level are strained, particularly in times like this. And when ICE is going on a hiring spree, and you have local law enforcement agencies worried about their ability to recruit and retain local law enforcement officers and not losing them to the federal government, then our reliance on those local law enforcement agencies is a perilous strategy to take and could undermine local law enforcement's ability to address crime at the local level, whether it's white-collar crime, organized retail theft, violent crime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in my final minute, I will also suggest this. Director Patel has referenced earlier in the hearing that one of the most significant value addeds of partnering with local law enforcement is that they have the best intelligent, they are the best intelligent source. Is that correct?
For on the ground.
Yet, when local law enforcement is put in a perilous position of being in a role with this mass deportation agenda, which is consistently overreached, has been found to violate the law and the Constitution, and has undermined public confidence in law enforcement, not just by immigrants, by the way, but especially immigrants. When immigrants are victims of crime and are afraid to come forward because they don't know what law enforcement is going to do with their information or not, when immigrants legal or undocumented, are witnesses to crime and are afraid to come forward with that information because they don't know what's going to happen with their information or not. That undermines the credibility of law enforcement with the community and undermines the intelligence, Director Patel, that you say are the best source of intelligence when it comes to law enforcement. So it's shaky, it's worrisome, and in my opinion, overall, you are failing to live up to the role and responsibility that you have been confirmed to, and I associate with myself with everything Senator Booker said earlier. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.